And we're back. I'm going to continue responding to this lunatic's video on me because although I thought I would feel satisfied with my initial response to this wacky little chipmunk, alas, here we are. I'm glad I left it open-ended because Shady just couldn't keep his mouth shut long enough and had to write this ridiculous community post, once again making untrue claims such as those about the production quality of my video, calling it lazy and hastily put together. I suppose if you are a viewer of this person's bullshit, you wouldn't watch my video and would take this person at their word, but as you can see here, there is clear effort and organization put into my video, something I shouldn't even have to state if you watched it. But this doesn't at all surprise me. Apparently, his modus operandi is to lie and lie some more. Here in a comment towards a person that attempted to defend me, you can see him state clearly that I dedicated most of my video crapping on his audio quality. For those of you unwilling to even watch the first video to know that I literally only spoke about that at the very beginning, with the context being that I was preparing my audience that are used to superb audio quality from me, that I was making a video on someone who does not have that capability, here's a Control F for the words audio quality in my script. A whole ass one time. But I see what he's trying to do here. He's attempting to equate my small jabs at him to the comical amount of times he insulted me throughout the video, and we only made it 37 minutes in, literally 25% of his video on me. Another untrue claim he makes here is, I'm hiding what he has to say, which is not only a lie, it's an easily refuted and confusing one. I would love to know what the hell he's talking about here, as in my video I explicitly show his commentary in full and in context because, unlike him, I'm not a disingenuous little liar. Further, my arguing style is to literally quote people and then respond exactly to what they've said, so either he is confused or he's trying to lie to an audience that will not fact-check him. However, I am open to being shown where I've done this, as I'm legitimately at a loss for what he's referring to here. I mean, I wrote this in his community section over a month ago, and crickets. I guess one would assume that he's not getting the messages or that he's not paying attention to a month-old community post, but interestingly, he's responding to or hearting seemingly everyone else that made a comment here, including those that made comments as recently as 5 days ago since this screenshot, but strangely not my over a month-old comment. Before I continue undressing this weird little rodent, I have a few clarifications I'd like to make regarding my previous video. One thing I love to do is rewatch my own videos and pore over the minutia of my own arguments. This has the unfortunate side effect of me wanting to add or clarify things I feel like I could have stated better the first go-round. So I have a couple things to say to help solidify my previous arguments. Cinema Buff, a longtime supporter and critic of the channel, pointed out something about the Doctor Strange portals that I glossed over. In the original video, Shandy stated that the rules established in the first Doctor Strange film regarding portals had been broken in No Way Home. His argument was that the person making the portals needed to visualize the location they wanted to go, and that Ned summoning Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was them breaking that rule. I responded by stating the portals are capable of locating people specifically, and used two examples to prove this point. Strange locating Loki in Thor Ragnarok, and later Strange locating Tony Stark at the beginning of Infinity War, both instances of Strange not knowing where those people were specifically, so the portal located them. Cinema Buff pointed out to me that when I said zero context, that I was incorrect because there was a comic that showed a mirror that allowed Strange to locate Loki, and that in the end credit scene of the first Doctor Strange film, he mentions that he keeps a watch list of threats to Earth. This is correct, and it was something I could have mentioned about the end credit scene that I myself brought up, as it would have bolstered my later talking point about Strange being able to locate the Scarlet Witch in preparation for their conflict with Thanos. However, there are two things I'd like to say about this. One, being that Tony Stark isn't a threat to Earth, the point about the portal being able to locate him still stands. In the comic, it isn't stated how the mirror works, just shown that it does, and given the context of his words in the film, it would appear he doesn't have the capability to locate a non-threat using that mirror. We have to assume that the mirror works automatically, and that it is tuned for known threats from other realms. And two, these Prelude comics exist in a limbo state we call soft canon. This means these comics are canon to the MCU until contradicted by the movies or shows, and in the case of this particular comic, it contradicts the film Thor Ragnarok itself. For example, in the second book, Loki is standing on Thor's right, while in the film, Loki is standing on Thor's left. Further, the previous issue shows Captain America rescuing his fellow Avengers from the Raft prison, where it shows him doing this with the helmeted version of his costume and without the help of Natasha, who was hinted to have helped Steve do this at the end of Black Widow. In the actual shot of Steve from the films, he's not wearing his helmet. You might see these as minor distinctions until I explain that these books came out after Thor Ragnarok and Civil War, meaning these details should not be different, but considering they are, and the fact that Black Widow also slightly contradicts its version of events, it calls into question its canonicity. For the sake of argument, I'm going to accept the canonicity of this comic and that Strange has a mirror that allows him to see when a threat to Earth appears, and accept that I was incorrect at stating there was zero context in my previous video. This is clearly an attempt at an explanation for what happened in Ragnarok, and it helps bolster my argument regarding the rescuing of Wanda, because we at least have an example of how Strange could find Wanda if he followed my idea. And finally, I'm going to force Slim Shady to edit the script he's clearly already writing. In the previous video, he tried to give a very silly reason magic shouldn't be able to move beings that are alive in the Harry Potter franchise. Here's a reminder of what he said.
Inanimate objects have no will of their own. They cannot give consent, they cannot scream or shout or let it all out, and they cannot move away from you when you pick them up. This means that realistically speaking, you should be able to pick up a spoon without any issue. Translate that to magic and you have the same principle, only this time it's more convenient. People, or even animals, are built different. Animals will kick you, scratch you, or even kill you if you interact with them in a manner they do not like. Human beings are capable of denying consent to actions they do not wish to partake in and actively fight you if you try to force them to do something against their will. Translate this to magic and you could very likely end up having a similar situation, where the person can just decide that they don't want to be picked up because fuck you, put me down. I don't know if this is an actual explanation, but it's one I came up with in like 4 seconds.
My response was to humorously point out that magic has always been able to manipulate beings that are alive in fiction, and I used Ermac from Mortal Kombat as an example. After watching my video over and over, I've come to the conclusion that he may not like this example. So, here's a better one. Barty Crouch Jr. manipulating Draco as a ferret with magic. Clearly, Draco has a soul and is alive and does not want to be moved in this situation, and yet it's happening anyway.
We never use transfiguration as a punishment. Surely Dumbledore told you that.
Might have mentioned it.
Now, let's get on to the new stuff.
You are assuming Strange can actually destroy the stone, when this is what was required of Wanda to kill Vision. Stop asking for shit you cannot prove is possible.
This is a simple failure to understand what it is that I'm saying. For those of you unfamiliar with my position, quickly, in order to prove my point that Doctor Strange acts rashly, I suggested he should have looked into the future at the point at which Bruce Banner crashes into the Sanctum. Had he looked into the future at that moment in time, he would have seen Infinity War and Endgame play out the way we on the other side of the fourth wall would have. Thanos acquires all the gems, beats the Avengers, destroys the gems, and that Strange would learn the time gem would get destroyed anyway, thereby alerting him to the possibility of it being destroyed. We are knee-deep in Phase 5 and there haven't been any ill effects of the time gem or any of the other gems being destroyed. This means that instead of trying to fight Ebony Maw, who he would have seen himself losing to in the Infinity War timeline, he would elect to find ways to destroy the time gem and prevent Thanos from acquiring it in the first place. Now, Shandy shows on screen Wanda destroying Vision's mind gem, so this means in my scenario, the time-traveling Strange would have also seen Wanda was capable of destroying the Infinity Gems and would conclude that finding her instead of picking up Tony Stark would be the better option, as she has the ability to destroy Infinity Gems. As you just heard, Shandy said I didn't have proof, even though he showed on screen the proof he said I didn't have. My proof is Wanda, who was shown on screen capable of destroying the mind gem. That is not conjecture. That is not me pulling things from my ass. That is not a hypothesis. Marvel showed us she has this capability. That Strange does not even think to use the time gem at the point in which Banner explains to him the threat of Thanos proves that Strange behaves rashly and is at least somewhat irresponsible with magic, using it when he doesn't have to and not using it when he should. This is one of the points of contention with my No Way Home video, which kicked off this entire mess. the part of Infinity War where they're at the point of no return. Strange looks into the future at that point in time. He specifically states he looks into the future, meaning the future from where they are on Titan.
Oh my God! Wow!
Keep in mind, this is the guy suggesting the production quality of my videos is low. He has no retort to what I'm saying and clearly doesn't even understand the point I'm making there. You see, the argument I was making was that once Strange reaches Titan, the possible futures that he can potentially see are after certain things have already happened and is a point of no return. By that point, Vision has already been incapacitated. Part of my hypothetical was that once Strange brings Wanda into the fight, he would also bring Vision. Because of course he would. And a healthy Vision is at least capable of killing Thanos, as we are shown in What If.
Fascinating.
A healthy Vision's mind gem would also have the ability to destroy other Infinity Gems, giving you two beings capable of not only defeating Thanos, but also two beings with the power to destroy the other gems, which is what Shandy is saying I don't have evidence of. If Strange knew he could look into the future, why didn't he try that when Bruce warned him at the Sanctum Sanctorum?
That is an excellent question, Birdman. Now you are thinking like someone who can actually muster a thought. Strange has just been made aware of the danger he now faces, and thus he should be looking for viable ways to make sure that the outcome of Thanos winning is as far removed as possible.
That has been my position from the beginning. The person you're being a rabid fangirl for is the one that took issue with that position. We are here because he couldn't comprehend what I was saying when I stated that Strange should have avoided conflict or destroyed the gem. Madvocate clearly states that Strange not destroying the gem and giving it to Thanos was the only choice he had. The only choice he had.
As for Infinity War, not destroying the gem wasn't a questionable decision. It's his duty as a sorcerer to protect their most valuable weapon at all costs. And if you want to parade this scene around as an example of Strange making a questionable decision that led to Thanos winning, then sure, we all thought that in 2018. But now in hindsight, we know that surrendering the stone in exchange for Tony's life was, again, the only choice Strange had if he wanted a chance at undoing the blip and killing Thanos.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. All of this is, hold up. I'm gonna make the screen bigger for you. Hold on. You literally show a scene of Tony Stark telling Strange to destroy the gem before they get into a fight with Ebony Maw. That is what I am talking about. In Infinity War, he chose not to destroy the gem or avoid conflict, Had he destroyed the gem there, instead of trying to fight, Thanos would not have won. You're talking about the part of Infinity War where they're at the point of no return. Strange looks into the future at that point in time. He specifically states he looks into the future, meaning the future from where they are on Titan. If Strange knew he could look into the future, why didn't he try that when Bruce warned him at the Sanctum Sanctorum? He tried to fight instead of looking at possible outcomes at that point in time. Had he done that, he might have seen that the stone could be atomized, and that would prevent Thanos from acquiring all of them in the first place. The silly argument you're trying to make is that he wouldn't destroy the gem because of his sense of duty, but you're forgetting that he looked into the future on Titan and saw that the gem could be destroyed. So had he looked into the future before the fight with Ma, he would have realized the gem could be destroyed anyway. And instead of fighting, he would have looked to destroy the gem because he would have saw that possible future. He'd have gone, oh, that gem's going to be destroyed anyway, and it's not going to be that big a deal. Why didn't he look into the future before jumping into a fight with Ebony Maw? That's what I'm talking about. But no, he decided, I can fight. I'm going to go out there and fight. And that seems like questionable decision-making to me. Do you see how simply allowing my comments to fully play and trying to understand them could have prevented this gap in your understanding? Your issue is actually with Madvocate because he didn't think there was another viable option and took issue with my hypotheticals. That work, by the way. But you're about to fall into the same trap he did because, like Strange, neither of you two stooges can actually think in more than a single dimension. Here, I'll let you demonstrate that yourself.
The only issue is that he is working with limited time and needs to devise a plan in order to locate the remaining stones, as well as gaining the assistance of Tony Stark, who, no matter the outcome, would be a tremendous ally in defending the planet.
I know you guys heard what he just said, right? A guy that can manipulate time doesn't have time to do something. This is a level of stupidity so severe, I don't even think CinemaSins would have said that. In other words, you would not be excellent at CinemaSins. Further, you are clearly demonstrating your inability to think here. In my hypothetical, you don't need Tony Stark for this mission. Like, at all. Seriously, what function did Stark serve to prevent the acquisition of the gems in Infinity War? Sure, he helped almost get the gauntlet off the arm of Thanos, but other than that, he got into a physical confrontation with Ebony Maw, Black Dwarf, and Thanos himself, and lost to each one of them. If Strange follows my plan of action, he would have 2 gems in his possession, with 2 beings capable of destroying other gems they happen to come across, the most important of which is the Time Gem, which Thanos used to reverse the destruction of the Mind Gem. If Wanda destroys the Time Gem, Thanos has no way of completing the set and has no need to continue looking for them, and you have Vision and Wanda, 2 beings that were shown to have the capability to defeat Thanos. What part of this requires Tony? Electing to pick up Tony is actually wasting time. In my Doctor Strange video, I explained that instead of using that time to pick up Tony, he could have been looking into the future, coming to the conclusions that I have been tirelessly laying out for you.
And as the scene on Titan explains, looking forwards in time takes a great deal of concentration, energy, and time, all of which are resources he chooses to use in the moment to secure the present situation.
Hey Pee-wee, what's the word of the day? The scene you're talking about does not explain any of that. You are assuming that's what it does, but the full scene does not say any of those things. It doesn't say it requires a lot of energy. You made that up. Sure, we see Strange panting, but that's because he just spent millions of lifetimes in different timelines. The energy expenditure is from having done so much of a thing, not doing that thing itself. It's like weightlifting. Sure, you can pick up a 5-pound weight, no problem. Do it 100 times and see how you feel. It doesn't say it requires a great deal of concentration either. You made that up too. We have seen Strange use or attempt to use the gem multiple times, and none of those instances showed him having to concentrate very heavily. He was able to rewind an apple on his first try. He actually had more difficulty with the extra dimensional portals than the Time Gem.
My hands.
It's not about your hands.
I control it by surrendering control. It doesn't make any sense.
Not everything does. Not everything has to.
And again, it doesn't take a lot of time. You made that up. And this is probably the most egregious, considering Strange looks at over 14 million different timelines in what we can only assume was a short amount of time since they'd met the Guardians. I'm supposing you don't understand how big of a number 14 million is, so let me paint a picture for you. Strange looked at 14 million timelines, which we can safely assume he spent some time in each timeline watching how everything played out. Let's make a separate assumption. Let's say from the perspective of Tony and the others, otherwise known as real time, it only took Strange a single second per timeline. 14 million seconds is 233,333 minutes, or 3,888 hours, or 162 days. That doesn't seem to work, does it? The Guardians, Spider-Man, Tony, and Strange were probably on Titan for a couple of hours at best, in which time we saw Strange looking into the future. So let's say he saw all those timelines in 2 hours. This means 7 million timelines per hour, which also doesn't work because Mantis reacted to Strange as if he had just started doing that, and there was no way they would have lost track of Steven for 2 hours. The only rational explanation here is that Strange looked at all those futures in a very small amount of real time, which means he doesn't need a lot of real time to look into the future. Now back to Earth. At the point in time where Bruce crashed into the Sanctum, Bruce explained to Strange the threat Thanos posed. What you are telling me is that Strange could not have used the time they formulated the plan to find and explain Thanos and the Infinity Gems to Tony to look into the future. I'm not sure why that makes sense to you, but I assure you, those of us with brains that are properly functioning see the gigantic hole in the argument you're presenting.
It isn't until he reaches the point of no return that he decides to look into the future because, as Madvika pointed out, he had no other choice available to him at the time.
And as I have been pointing out, Madvika was wrong. Strange had options prior to the battle with Maw because my hypotheticals work. They fit the available evidence, they make sense within the universe, and the only reason they didn't happen is because Strange does not think to use magic he is capable of performing, even after Tony told him to destroy the gem.
If Thanos needs all 6, why don't we just stick this one down the garbage disposal?
No can do.
We swore an oath to protect the Time Stone with our lives.
Whatever, point is, things change.
And this still may be the best chance we have against Thanos.
Yeah, so conversely, it may also be his best chance against us.
The fact is that we have this stone. We know where it is. Vision is out there somewhere with the Mind Stone, and we have to find him now. Tony, you lost another Superbot?
I didn't lose him. He's more than that. He's evolving.
Who could find Vision then?
Well, unless you count the sling ring portals which can teleport him back to Earth. Thank you, Endgame, for completely removing any and all tension you may have created in this film by incorporating a lack of limitations. But whatever, magic isn't supposed to have rules. Anyways, right?
Another instance of you lying about my position on rules and magic. But apparently, I'm the one that's been presenting the misinformation, right? Give me a fucking break.
He tried to fight instead of looking at possible outcomes at that point in time. Had he done that, he might have seen that the stone could be atomized, and that would prevent Thanos from acquiring all of them in the first place.
You are arguing from hindsight bias again. It makes sense for Strange to protect people as the Sorcerer Supreme. Stop trying to make Infinity War look worse just so you can wave away Strange's stupid decision making in this film. It's pathetic.
That sounds dangerously close to you not being able to actually argue against my point and brushing it aside without any actual refutation. And it's really dumb, too. The entire point of the conversation is hindsight. Apparently, you have forgotten that we are here because I'm trying to demonstrate that Doctor Strange's behavior is consistent. In order to do that, I suggested that he made mistakes with magic. One of those examples is not using magic at the correct time, when that magic is literally the manipulation of time. So, through hypotheticals, I demonstrate options he could have chosen, but didn't because he didn't think them through. You have to use hindsight in this case because that's the literal point of it all. And again, I find it highly disingenuous of you to admonish me for using hindsight in a hindsight battle, but when Madvika did it, you actually agreed with him.
But now in hindsight, we know that surrendering the stone in exchange for Tony's life was, again, the only choice Strange had if he wanted a chance at undoing the blip and killing Thanos.
Madvika again highlights the nature of Strange's commitment to being a sorcerer and explains why he would choose to secure the stone instead of destroying it.
You are not only riding his meat, you're doing tricks on it.
The silly argument you're trying to make is that he wouldn't destroy the gem because of his sense of duty, but you're forgetting that he looked into the future on Titan and saw that the gem could be destroyed. So had he looked into the future before the fight with Maw, he would have realized the gem could be destroyed anyway.
Yes, you sauteed silicon fleshlight. He saw the stone could be destroyed by using the other Infinity Stones, something he has no access to at this current moment in time. You are also actively ignoring the part of the video which states Strange would not destroy the stone even if he had the ability to do so. Please unplug your ears and listen to what he is saying instead of running away with a completely wrong interpretation of his argument.
The irony is almost too much to bear. You have thus far demonstrated an uncanny inability to understand the simplest things I've stated. You also just lie about things as if there isn't videographic evidence. You need to calm the fuck down and try actually listening to the person talking if you're going to jump into an A and B conversation, Mr. C. Now, I'm aware that you have included a response to both my videos on this topic in this video, so you are entirely aware of my argument in the second video regarding using Wanda and Vision to destroy the other gems. So you are very clearly being dishonest here by suggesting the only way to destroy the gems is through the completed gauntlet, which is even stupider because you are aware that Strange would have seen Wanda destroy the Mind Gem at the end of Infinity War, meaning he would very obviously be aware that there are multiple ways to skin a cat, which apparently you yourself are forgetting, even though you literally showed that scene in this video, you numpty. Even stupider is you invoking Endgame's explanation for destroying the gems. Hello? The gems are still destroyed, something he would have seen in Endgame, which means he would have seen how they defeated Thanos in Endgame, which we all know was through the time heist. There's another solution right there. Perform the time heist before Endgame. Find Ant-Man, use the Pym particle to go through time, collect the gems, bring Smart Hulk from the Endgame timeline, use Hulk to wish Thanos away, another clean victory, and this time he can keep the gems completely intact, not have everyone die for 5 years, and everyone is happy.
Time travel! What? I see this as an absolute win.
My original argument was that all they had to do was destroy one or two of the gems, most importantly the Time Gem, and now Thanos cannot complete the gauntlet and his quest fails. It is the most ironic of the ironies that you sit here and suggest I'm not listening because either you can't comprehend what I'm saying or you're lying. Choose.
And instead of fighting, he would have looked to destroy the gem because he would have saw that possible future. He'd have gone, oh, that gem's going to be destroyed anyway, and it's not going to be that big a deal. Why didn't he look into the future before jumping into a fight with Ebony Maw? That's what I'm talking about.
I'm so glad you think Madvocate has the ability to smell arguments you meant to make instead of just going with what he heard you say in the video he is responding to.
Madvocate, like you, jumped into a conversation that didn't involve him and made assumptions. I was very clear in my Everything Wrong With video for Strange to avoid conflict and to destroy the gem. These ideas were literally presented in Infinity War. I simply proposed ways in which to go about doing so after Madvocate attacked my argument. You know, because that's how that works. If I say something and you don't understand, the smart thing would have been to ask for clarification or examples. But you two idiots are so used to attacking things you don't understand, like primitive people witnessing science for the first time, that this option flew completely over your heads. But what do we expect from someone that thinks Spider-Man 3 is a better movie than Spider-Man 2?
It's not like you didn't make your position clear at all or anything, and you are choosing to retroactively alter your own points in order to make them seem more thought out just so you can one-up Madvocate, when in reality, anyone who watches this video will not be able to come to that conclusion because you don't make it clear what you are talking about.
That's the problem. I don't have to. I said a correct thing, that Strange should have avoided conflict and tried to destroy the gem. Your butt buddy was the one that tried to argue against that idea, presenting what they thought was evidence he couldn't do the things I suggested. All I did was show him options that he had prior to leaving Earth. This is how arguing works, clown. Not all elements of an argument are present at the beginning of said argument. You have to first have a thesis and later provide examples and evidence for that thesis. You are clearly unaware of how an Everything Wrong With CinemaSins video works, and that's partially due to the fact that you think the best way to make videos is to drone on about something that could have been stated in less time. They say the mark of wit is brevity, which explains the length of your videos.
The fact you felt like you had to clarify your own position in a response video just further proves my point that you need to...
Oh my fucking god, redraft your script!
As I said, you are unfamiliar with the concept of a Sins video. The entire point is to be as snappy and succinct as possible. No one in the comment section of that video that currently has over 300,000 views had any problems with me stating Strange should have destroyed the gem or avoided conflict until you gremlins invaded my comment section. It made sense to everyone that watched it, and I didn't need to explain how he could have destroyed the gems because we are all already aware how those gems could be destroyed, genius. The video is about No Way Home, the second Spider-Man movie since Endgame. We already know the option Strange could take because we saw Wanda destroy one, and we saw Stormbreaker overpower the fully completed gauntlet, and we saw Ultron and Vision's body destroy Thanos, and we saw the gems get destroyed through the completed gauntlet, and we saw that the Avengers would have their own completed gauntlet. Only you moron wannabe film video essayists need every little thing spelled out for you because through being pedantic, you can't ever see the forest for the trees.
I just made a duty in my pants.
But no, he decided, I can fight. I'm going to go out there and fight. And that seems like questionable decision-making to me.
Then you are a fool, Birdman.
Wow, great argument. I love the fact that you're literally contradicting yourself. On one hand, you're attempting to admonish me for using hindsight, which implies you actually agree my points make sense. But then when I say that these examples of Strange not thinking are examples of him making questionable decisions, I'm a fool? Wait, if I'm a fool, doesn't that mean your hindsight point is nullified? You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth.
As bullshit as the 1 in 14 million thing is, it's something Infinity War and Endgame established.
There was no other way.
Did you fucking forget that Thanos needed to win so he could lose later?
Maybe.
So no, your two examples do not prove he consistently makes mistakes or questionable decisions.
Oh, but it wasn't two examples, was it?
Was it not?
Yes, because I don't give a fuck about what if or what if.
Oh, he mentioned what if. Oh yeah, I remember when we talked about that.
Yeah, I sent it to you, but since I have no interest in what if, and I know is it canon? It's probably canon, but like I don't give a fuck about what if.
I want to pause here to demonstrate the intellectual dishonesty of Madvocate here. We are literally embroiled in an argument that requires evidence. I bring up 3 pieces of evidence, and he eschews one of them because he doesn't give a fuck about one of them, even though he begrudgingly admits it's canon. These are the kinds of people I'm dealing with, and somehow the fiction they've created in their heads is that I'm the villain here.
There were 3 examples, and it's a wonder why you cut me off there. I'm not going to say you're being dishonest.
Well, I'm going to call you a cunt. You're a cunt.
And so is your mother, but you still love her?
His first film had him playing around with the time gem, and as a result, Mordo became a villain. In Infinity War, he chose not to destroy the gem or avoid conflict, which led to Thanos winning. In What If, Strange becomes an amalgam of all the dark magic he consumes in the pursuit of saving his love interest.
Of course, this supports the position that Doctor Strange often acts without thinking things through to their logical conclusion, which was my point.
As you might have guessed, these people are clowns. Facts don't matter, only the narrative they're trying to spin. As you can see here, Sucks Cock thinks my point hinges on if it's 2 or 3, unaware that I'm pointing out that Madvocate is being dishonest by not including all of my examples, especially the one that is most damaging to his argument. Fam, if I unincluded a salient point in a live debate, that would immediately cast suspicion on me and bring into question my integrity, which is a death sentence in the debate world. But to these motherfuckers, it's just funny and not worth probing any further. This is why Shandy put it on the screen, because he thinks the exact same way. It's unimportant to him that Madvocate doesn't engage with the entirety of the point he's trying to argue against. But I'm the asshole for choosing not to debate these people.
Considering that your first 2 examples did have Strange performing his duties and executing actions that required a great deal of thought before being executed, I'm curious why exactly you think Strange, from What If, supports your argument here.
Why are you curious about things that were clearly stated? Aren't you responding to the literal video in which I explain this position? How about listening to what I said instead of fast forwarding through the video?
There were 3 examples, and it's a wonder why you cut me off there. I'm not going to say you're being dishonest, but let's take a look.
His first film had him playing around with the time gem, and as a result, Mordo became a villain. In Infinity War, he chose not to destroy the gem or avoid conflict, which led to Thanos winning. In What If, Strange becomes an amalgam of all the dark magic he consumes in the pursuit of saving his love interest.
Of course, this supports the position that Doctor Strange often acts without thinking things through to their logical conclusion, which was my point. Of course, you're going to say this doesn't count because it's What If, but I would counter with it does count because What If is literally putting the MCU characters with all of their personality traits intact in various situations to see how they would cope. The head writer of What If explicitly states What If is canon to the MCU, so I don't want to hear it. You cut off that part of my video because it's one of the most damning pieces of evidence that supports my position, but we can't have that when you're building false narratives about movies you dislike, can we?
Yes, What If is canon to the MCU. I am not disproving that. They take place in the same multiverse, with the premise being that each episode follows characters we know but with minor altercations in their lives. And by minor, I mean Hank Pym becomes a serial killer and Thanos stops being one because T'Challa presented a good argument against genocide. Now, if you need me to spell out why this is a fucking problem for your point, then I suggest you start mouthing along with what I'm saying and then repeat it in the mirror before you go to bed. These characters are fundamentally not the same as the main timeline. The premise relies on them performing one or more actions that are different to their mainline counterparts, which then drastically changes their personality going forwards.
You were so close, and then, like the tangent you went on about Strange requiring a lot of concentration to view multiple futures, you just made that last part the fuck up. It's clear to me that of the three people in this conflict, I'm the only one that is a comic book fan. You nor Madvocate understand what if means. What If is a series of comics that takes the characters we all know and love and places them in situations different than the ones they are in 616, just to see what would happen. That's the exact concept of the TV show and where the name of the series comes from. What if? That question isn't asking, what if these characters had different personalities? It's explicitly to see how the same character would react to different circumstances. This is exactly how Kevin Feige described the series before its debut, a show that explores the repercussions of one small change to the existing stories. This means their personalities are intact in these stories, and remember, we are debating Doctor Strange's personality here. In Strange's What If episode, it is made explicitly clear that it is the same Doctor Strange from his first movie, and the divergence is him losing Christine instead of his hands. You just tried to say that these characters develop entirely different personalities in this anthology, and aside from the fact that you have no evidence to back that claim up, you've missed the point entirely. Before Strange makes any decisions in the episode, Wong and Steven have this exchange.
What are you doing up? I needed the little sorcerer's room. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to start the kettle. I suggest you join me before you do something reckless.
I wonder why Wong would just assume Strange is at all reckless before he even fucks anything up. It's not like this is how Strange is characterized in the MCU or something. Oh, wait. This is further demonstrated in Multiverse of Madness, where Strange is confronted by another version of himself that abused magic in a way that had serious repercussions for the universe he inhabits. In that same film, they show another Doctor Strange that the Illuminati had to kill because he abused magic. It's almost like across the multiverse, every version of Doctor Strange is being characterized as a person that abuses magic and doesn't think about the outcome of his actions. This is why the what if example is relevant. Just like Madvocate, you don't want to include what if because it absolutely demolishes both of you. Again, the intention of what if is to place characters with their personalities intact into different situations. That's all. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to sit this one out.
This isn't true for every character, just the vast majority, and the character in question here would be Doctor Strange, who decided to rewrite an absolute point in time in order to save Christine from dying. The episode follows him steadily beginning to lose his mind as he spends centuries trying to gain the power needed to change this point in time. Fucking centuries.
In case you aren't aware, the only time Strange was even alive for centuries in the main timeline was during his encounter with Dormammu, when he repeatedly reversed time using the time stone until Dormammu agreed to cease attacking the Earth. And even that was just him replaying the same moments over and over again, not physically moving along with the natural passage of time.
This episode has the Ancient One splitting the timeline to allow for two possible futures. One where Strange continues to search for power to save Christine, and one where he lets go of the past and focuses on becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. What this means for the character is we get to see how each of them behave when put into different situations, with the final result being that they heavily disagree with each other. The good Strange in this relationship sees that evil Strange is trying to destroy the world, but instead of going along with it for the sake of saving Christine, he fights his alter ego and attempts to save the world. To say that each Strange is the same person would be true on a surface level.
That is the point, numbnuts, that all of the Stranges, while being different people, are characterized in a certain way that colors their behavior. Let me say that again. Different people Same character. I am not and have never said that they all behave the exact same. That doesn't even make sense. I think the concept of Strange visiting 14 million different timelines makes that obvious, as all 14 million divergences of the same character all did something differently. You are not addressing the point I made, which was that Strange is characterized in a way that has him constantly making mistakes with magic. The one common thread with all those versions of Strange is that they've all somewhere along the way had a fuck up with magic of some kind that was of their own doing. The example you brought up with the good Strange in What If was him being shown what happens if he makes a certain decision. Because he is shown what could have been, he realizes the Strange I was talking about in my Everything Wrong With video takes the bad path, which is why he behaves differently. And he loses the fight with the bad Strange, meaning there was some path that he could have taken but didn't, which ultimately led to his assimilation by bad Strange. You are unintentionally making my fucking point.
The head writer of What If explicitly states What If is canon to the MCU, so I don't want to hear it.
Okay, you won't hear it. You're still wrong, though, even if we used your example, because that's not how consistent behavior works, you anthropomorphic ice cube.
At this point, it's completely apparent that you are willfully ignoring what it is I've been saying this whole time. I gave 3 examples, and Madvocate had a problem with the third. You are now providing a 4th example that actually proves my point further still, and you don't realize that the 4th example does not conflict with the 3rd. You think that because there is a good Strange in the episode that this somehow nullifies my point about the bad Strange. It literally doesn't, but this is because you think I'm saying these characters all behave the same exact way, when how could that possibly make any sense when I'm bringing up a version of Strange that literally erased his own universe, and that's not something movie Strange ever did. Do you not see how stupid you sound? You're conflating different things because you are willfully ignoring the point. I am talking about characterization here. You are talking about plot points. Your position is inflexible because you are describing events as they happened. My position is that you can take movie Strange and place him in infinite amount of plot points in infinite different situations, but the one thing that would remain the same is that he's going to make some blunder with magic because that is the characterization. Spider-Man might try to solve a problem with science. Tony Stark might try to solve it with technology. Hulk might try to solve it with brute force, and Strange might try to solve it with magic. Are you starting to understand characterization? All those characters would go about the same problem in different ways because they are characterized differently. All 4 of those characters are geniuses, but they all use different means to come to what is hopefully the same end. That is characterization. My position on Strange has been he is characterized as a cocky, arrogant know-it-all that will make rash decisions using magic and not always think the situation through to its logical conclusion, and that this characterization is the cause of conflict in his stories in the MCU. This is consistent across every single one of his appearances, with the exception of Good Strange in What If and Spanish-speaking Strange from Multiverse of Madness, and the reason these are exceptions is because we barely have time with them. We don't see them behave much, but even they have cases that can be made against them, such as Spanish Strange trying to absorb America's powers into himself, because he thought there was no other way. That's incredibly similar to the position you and Madvocate adopted when I was arguing that Strange using the time gem on Dormammu was a mistake, wouldn't you say? Because just like with Dormammu, Spanish Strange thought killing America was the only way, except that film presented an entirely different way to solve the problem, and Spanish Strange was wrong. Just like movie Strange with Dormammu, at least according to Mordo. And the example you brought up literally got himself killed. Now, unless you want to argue that Good Strange dying in What If was the only way things could have played out and that he didn't have any other options, your example is but another feather in my cap.
You cut off that part of my video because it's one of the most damning pieces of evidence that supports my position. Oh, but it wasn't 2 examples, was it?
Was it not?
Yes, because I don't give a fuck about what if. Or what if.
End of flashback.
But we can't have that when you're building false narratives about movies you dislike, can we?
My Habibi in Allah, you couldn't even watch the first 10 seconds of his video. Please shut the fuck up about him creating false narratives, when you couldn't even do the bare minimum research, you sentient loincloth.
Again, I don't just believe what people say. I need a track record of behavior before I start taking people at their word. Most people use I like this thing, but as a deflection from criticism. As you said, in the first 10 seconds, he states he liked No Way Home. You see, someone that actually liked No Way Home wouldn't have to tell you he liked No Way Home. It's universally considered a great film, and only a small minority of people actually dislike it. What I'm saying is, it makes more sense for someone to say, I don't like No Way Home. Why would someone need to explain they actually like a universally acclaimed film? Because he's about to shit on it. And he's about to criticize fundamental parts of a movie that literally make the movie, and without those things he's criticizing, the film would fundamentally be different. This says to me, a person that does not trust someone he doesn't know, especially one that is flaming me for absolutely no reason, that I like this film is a potential deflection. Sure, he likes this film, given that nearly all his content up to this video that he named Way Home Machine Broke was doom-scrolling hate-click shit, and that his only other MCU-related content was shitting on WandaVision and saying this about Shang-Chi.
Anyway, despite this plot and its characters being in shambles...
Sounds like you have a hater.
Listen, I couldn't give a fuck what this dude likes or dislikes, but you bitches are blaming me for saying this dude comes across as an MCU hater when all evidence supports that assumption. It's like, do you know anything about the Birdman? I constantly point out that Jeremy of CinemaSins says one thing and does another. Do you really expect me to just believe what someone says?
Also, I'm confused now. When you say there is no doubt Strange and Peter are making a mistake, it kinda makes it seem like CinemaSins' criticism is that Strange performing a spell at all to help Peter is the mistake. But it's not. It's that he doesn't fucking say anything that would prompt Peter to set certain parameters before and just jumps into it despite not being in a hurry.
Yeah, I bet you are confused.
Yes, please take this tone when you have actively contradicted your own arguments in order to dunk Madvocate.
Well, I'll give you some credit. You at least admitted I dunked on him. But you really shouldn't talk. You can barely assess an argument. Stick Mad's weenie back in your mouth, shut the fuck up, and let the rest of my video play, clown.
Forget the dick sucking you're doing for CinemaSins right now.
Meanwhile...
And just to be crystal clear, CinemaSins' No Way Home video is dog shit, as expected, but this is one of like 2 valid criticisms he made that Birdman should have just skipped over.
The bare minimum research. Couldn't even do that.
I like this one a lot because the behavior you're demonstrating here is something I was going to bring up. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm a Black American, and Black Americans have a particular culture, and that culture influences the way we speak and behave. Given that Black American culture and slang has been stolen so much that it's basically mainstream now, you might not have noticed that you are doing what I was doing. Demonstrating Black culture. You see, the clapping you just did after every word is a Black thing. And calling someone a dick rider or a dick eater or a dick sucker is also a Black thing, only your understanding of it is the watered down version that has been hijacked on the internet. Like the words woke, simp, thick, and sus, I use it in its correct context, and that context is no matter when you agree with something, agreeing with them to argue against someone else is dick eating.
Look, that's real pimping. Now that's pimping. Get off his dick, baby.
You being what is essentially a rat don't have this culture, so you didn't understand it, but I assure you it is a thing. This means, of course, I am not calling him a CinemaSins fan. I said he was dick sucking right now, as in this moment. I said you were doing that twice in the course of this video, in fact.
My explanation is that both these characters are fucking up here. Strange's mistake is jumping into a spell without consideration for precisely what the other character wants, and Peter's mistake is asking Strange for this spell in the first place.
Right, so Peter Parker, a 17-year-old kid who just had his entire world shattered before his very eyes and has spent the last few months hounded by the public and falsely accused for a crime he didn't commit, asked a wizard if he could make everyone forget who he was so he could go back to his regular life. The wizard says that not only can he do that, but it would have 0 negative consequences if he does it correctly. And you think Peter is making a mistake for taking the wizard at his word.
This is called putting words in someone's mouth. In other words, a straw man argument. Never in my video did I suggest taking Strange at his word was the mistake. I quite literally said what the mistake was. If you took the nuts out of your ears and put them in your mouth where they belong, you would have heard that. Let's listen to what I said.
And Peter's mistake is asking Strange for this spell in the first place. This spell never happens without Peter going to Strange to ask him to reverse time, so these events are tied to each other and therefore both need to be addressed. I mean, Strange specifically tells Peter that he could have asked MIT to reconsider and got mad at him that he didn't, so this spell was not the only choice Peter had, like the weird tangent you went on about Dormammu. Let's move on, shall we?
Do you see how you can have a better understanding of someone's point if you but choose to listen and stop interjecting, trying to come up with what you think they said?
Is Peter to blame for fucking up the spell? Yes, but only by technicality, because he couldn't stop asking Strange to give precise parameters since he was panicking that the people he cares for would forget him. Strange, the former master of the mystic arts, should not be this boneheaded despite being an arrogant arsehole. He was one of, if not the greatest surgeon on the planet. Do you think he would have gotten this title if he didn't do his job correctly?
And herein lies my issue with you people. I've been making the case that despite what you all wish Strange was, this is how Strange is. You guys want him to behave differently to his established characterization, and I have been demonstrating that he has been the same since his first movie. I don't know what it is you think you're saying here with his former profession as a surgeon, but the argument has always been that Strange has been the same since his first movie. Madvocate's point was that Strange should be different due to the events of his first film, and I gave multiple examples after his first film of his behavior remaining constant. For whatever reason, you all seem to think that Strange acted differently after the first film, but somehow decided to act the same in No Way Home specifically, completely ignoring his other appearances.
And what about the fact that for a brief time, he was the Sorcerer Supreme, despite only being at the Sanctum for a few years? Do you honestly expect me to simultaneously believe that this character is incredibly pragmatic and intelligent, despite regularly fucking up due to his character flaw?
Doctor Strange in the MCU has never been the Sorcerer Supreme. You should know that, considering you made this video in late 2022, and Multiverse of Madness came out in early 2022, and in that movie, Wong explains he received a book upon becoming the Sorcerer Supreme that confirmed the existence of the Book of Vishanti. Strange didn't even know it was real, confirming he'd never been the Sorcerer Supreme. So like most of the things you say, you pulled that one from your ass.
Did Other Me know how to defeat this demon?
Well, you guys knew of this magical book of pure good that gives a sorcerer whatever they need to defeat their enemy.
The Book of Vishanti? It's not real. It's a fairy tale. It doesn't exist.
Actually, it does. I found out in the secret book you get when you become Sorcerer Supreme.
Unbelievable.
You're not the Sorcerer Supreme?
No, I'm not the Sorcerer Supreme.
And what is this question? The MCU is littered with geniuses that have flaws and make mistakes, from Iron Man to Thanos to Peter Parker. It's literally a trope in Marvel comic books for a character to be a troubled genius that has to fix issues that come about due to their own mistakes. There are countless books with that specific storyline, and it's why they chose to characterize Strange this way in the MCU.
This spell never happens without Peter going to Strange to ask him to reverse time, so these events are tied to each other and therefore both need to be addressed.
You can address these points as much as you want. Do it until your face turns blue and then purple. They don't automatically make you correct as a result.
What the fuck are you talking about? Dude, shut up and let my entire explanation play. You are stopping the video to take issue with something that is explained the next second after that sentence. You made this video far longer than it has to be because you are cutting my words out of their context to make long-winded quips that nobody laughed at. Jesus Christ, you are not funny. This is why you are where you are on this platform.
It doesn't matter how liable Peter is in the situation. He is not the one currently casting the spell, nor does he have all of the necessary foresight and knowledge that Strange has in order to proceed happily along with the spell.
You are missing that the movie explicitly states that Peter is making a mistake. You think that's my talking point, but the film states that he could have asked MIT to reconsider, and he didn't even think to make that decision. That is what a mistake is, to misjudge something. Further, why do you absolve Peter of his responsibility here? Upon Strange suggesting the spell, Peter should have sat down with Strange and hashed out exactly what he meant for people to forget him. Peter is a genius too. Clearly, blind acceptance of Strange's plan is also a mistake, at least from the perspective of Peter only wanting certain people to forget him and not mentioning that beforehand.
If Strange stops casting the spell right there, sits Peter down and has him write out all of the names of the people he wants to know his secret identity, or even if Peter and Strange discuss the parameters of the spell to prevent another mistake from happening, then the multiverse is not put in danger, you crack fiend.
Why are you presenting this as if I wrote the fucking movie? I'm not justifying Strange's behavior. I explained it. Again, you people are writing fan fiction. You're telling us what you wish Strange did, and I am explaining why he behaved the way he behaved by using a pattern of behavior demonstrated by Strange over multiple appearances. You just yelled what you think Strange should have done at me. It's like, okay, do you think I wouldn't like that option or something? Are you okay, kid?
If you want to argue Peter is irresponsible or reckless with how quickly he wants the spell to take place, then sure, you can make that criticism.
The point is that Peter's mistake is asking Strange to reverse time in the first place. Isn't this a lesson you should have learned in elementary school? That fast solutions come with fast problems? That taking one's time to solve a problem is usually the better way to deal with that problem?
However, considering the situation Peter finds himself in, it feels entirely within his character to want the spell to succeed.
It's amazing how you can accept Peter's characterization but not Strange's. I guess Peter's characterization doesn't fit the narrative you two are trying to spin.
If you want to bring up how he could have asked MIT to reconsider the application, allow me to counter that by saying he didn't know at the time and was only working with the information he had access to.
That's not a counter to that point. Lack of information does not make an action not a mistake. You are forgetting that Peter didn't ask for a forgetting spell, but for Strange to reverse time. You see, Peter isn't thinking at all. He was literally there when they defeated Thanos and was presumably made aware that Steve returned the gems to their places in the various timelines. This means, for some reason, he thought Strange still had the time gem, but when Steven told him he didn't...
I don't have the time stone anymore.
That's right.
And this lets the audience know that Peter simply forgot that Steve returned the gems. So, considering Peter went to Strange with this idea in the first place, lets us know that he's clearly not thinking, and not thinking leads to mistakes.
This is, again, an issue which is to be directed at Strange for not mentioning the second option earlier before casting the first spell. No matter which way you look at it, Strange in this scene is a colossal moron, and he endangered the safety of not only his universe, but every other universe that had a Peter Parker present for no good reason. All Peter wanted to do was get into college, you deranged celery stick.
Again, directing this at me as if I wrote the screenplay. What are you even arguing here? Are you forgetting what I said in the video that sparked all of this? You, Madvocate, and Jeremy are all saying Strange is making a mistake. I agree with all of you. Seriously, actually fucking listen to the sin. I'll play it again.
And here's where I will disagree with you, and by extension everyone that's been trying to make this point on the internet. What you and people like you have been doing with this scene and the plot as a whole is applying an out-of-universe criticism to an in-universe character. There is no doubt that Strange and Peter are making a mistake here, but those mistakes are on purpose. They are a part of the plot and characterization of these characters. Strange has literally been characterized as a person who constantly makes mistakes with magic. His first film had him playing around with the time gem, and as a result, Mordo became a villain. In Infinity War, he chose not to destroy the gem or avoid conflict, which led to Thanos winning. In What If, Strange becomes an amalgam of all the dark magic he consumes in the pursuit of saving his love interest. This is who he is. He consistently makes questionable decisions and pays for it later. As Mordo once said, the bill comes due.
As you can see, I specifically stated that Strange is making a mistake and that his choices sometimes lead to bad things happening. The reason I counted it as a sin against what CinemaSins was saying is that they are using the behavior of an in-universe character to criticize the movie as a whole, and my point was simply that he was sinning characterization in that instance. He does that a lot, giving movies sins for evil characters behaving evil, which is again the character behaving how they were written to behave. In other words, characterization.
Sonic do all this shit with his super speed makes me think he could have solved the problem of the runaway van and the bombs way before this moment.
Do you guys see what I'm talking about now? Why I say that CinemaSins is responsible for this current glut of idiot YouTubers that expect characters in films to behave perfectly at all times? This is why you can't get a nuanced approach to film analysis on the internet. It's always,
this character didn't do something that I, in the real world, would, while I'm ignoring I have the benefits of hindsight. Terrible movie.
This is the second movie, where we have already been shown that Sonic isn't the smartest character, nor does he ever do things the best way in which they can be done. He's prone to panicking and not thinking clearly in moments of pressure, because he's just a kid, and this is another example of that. I mean, Sonic's mental age is quite literally a point of emphasis in these films. You're asking him to act against his characterization, is what I'm saying.
He'll stop in a few minutes?
About 3 weeks.
The guy asked America to pay for her pizza balls, and because he insulted you a little bit, you cursed him to punch himself for 3 weeks, which is going to put this vendor out of business. I'm glad you think this is hilarious.
Strange is an asshole. This was established in his first movie. Sinning characterization.
Peter's mistake, as I have already stated, was trying to find a fast solution to a problem the film itself states could have been handled another way. Your quip about Peter only wanting to get into college works against you here. He literally asked to manipulate the fabric of space-time to get into college, something Strange specifically admonishes him for.
We tampered with the stability of space-time to resurrect countless lives. Do you want to do it again now just because yours got messy?
I mean, Strange specifically tells Peter that he could have asked MIT to reconsider and got mad at him that he didn't. So this spell was not the only choice Peter had, like the weird tangent you went on about Dormammu.
How the hell do you compare these two things? Dormammu was in the process of eating the planet. It was a blink and you die situation that called for Strange to act as fast as possible. This mind-wiping spell can be done a fucking week later and the outcome would be no different. How the hell did you come to the conclusion that Madvocate was suggesting this, you tumble-drying toenail?
What the fuck is your problem? Why is your comprehension so bad? I am not comparing them. That's not what that word means. I am contrasting them. That word means showing how they are different. I am literally saying those are different.
So this spell was not the only choice Peter had, like the weird tangent you went on about Dormammu. Not.
You are arguing my own point at me. How are you this dumb?
Let's move on, shall we?
Now earlier I mentioned CinemaSins made 2 actual valid criticisms. This is the second one.
Honestly, this Doctor Strange vs. Spider-Man mini-Civil War shouldn't even be a challenge, but Spidey somehow comes out on top in the end.
And what did Birdman have to say about this?
This comes across as if you think Spider-Man cannot defeat Doctor Strange in a battle, which is weird considering they are literally showing you Spider-Man defeating him in a battle.
What the fuck is this defense? Think, Birdman. Maybe Jeremy is highlighting that based on what we've seen Strange is able to do, the writers intentionally made him an inconsistent moron with his abilities so that Peter can actually have a chance at winning.
I don't know what you want. You try to use in-universe explanations to attempt to debunk my arguments, and then you get upset when that same universe shows you one character beating another. Because that...
No, that's what we call an inconsistency.
Whoa,
that is a
Birdman,
contradiction.
You almost figured out the definition of an inconsistency. Wow.
So you just
you
so just accept
You're
anything?
So close.
Do you see how dumbfounded these people are? They can't even formulate a coherent thought. These are the people online struggling to understand Marvel movies. It's hilarious. Let me break it down so even these knuckle draggers can understand. You cannot try to invoke an in-universe explanation to attempt to debunk, emphasis on the word attempt, but in the same breath, balk at that same universe's explanation for how one character can defeat another. That is trying to eat your cake and have it too. Those contradict each other. Either you accept the universe's explanations or you don't, because the logic must remain consistent for one of those points to continue making sense. As for the clown going, do you just accept everything? What the fuck does that have to do with anything presented here? The logic was that Sadvocate was trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth. Either the film's logic works or it doesn't. He tried to say it works in one instance to refute something I said, but then said the film's logic doesn't work because there was an outcome he didn't like the big fucking baby he is. For the rest of the dipshits that have a problem with Spider-Man defeating Doctor Strange, what did Stan Lee say about hero versus hero battles? Let's take a listen.
So one question I'm always asked, who would win in a fight? Who would win in a fight if Galactus fought the Hulk? or if Thor fought Iron Man. And there's one answer to all of that. It's so simple. Anyone should know this. The person who'd win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win. If I'm writing a story about the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and he gets into a big fight with Spider-Man, and millions of people out there say, who would win? Well, it depends on who I want to win if I'm writing the script. If I want Spider-Man to win, he'll win. If I want the Thing to win, he'll win. These are fictitious characters. The writer can do whatever he wants with them. So stop asking those bonehead questions, because I've had it with that.
Switched it!
I'm sorry if you have a problem with this, but this is how comic books work, and by extension, this is how comic book movies work. The only task the writer has is to make an entertaining and believable fight. And the main problem here is that Spider-Man and Strange weren't even fighting each other because it was a chase sequence, not a fight. Strange simply underestimated Peter because it's in his character to be cocky and arrogant and to infantilize and underestimate Spider-Man. Throughout the movie, he treated Peter like a child, never taking him seriously, using cartoon references at him and his friends.
Scooby-Doo this shit.
And all this is kind of your mess. You know, I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this shit.
And insisting on Peter calling him sir when he upset him.
Stephen, listen, I am so sorry. Call me sir. Sorry, sir.
Everything we've been through together, somehow I always forget. You're just a kid.
This is not what it looks like when a character is taking another one seriously. Peter defeats Strange due to a combination of luck, his own intelligence, and Strange underestimating him. Why do I have to explain this to these people? This shit was spoon-fed to you in this film. And y'all wonder why I haven't addressed this dumbass shit directly. I don't have to. They make themselves look silly. My response would be redundant.
Do you just accept anything that happens to you in the film, regardless of how bad it is? This is the kind of person that would enjoy Lucy.
You gotta love how even on his show, nobody but him laughed at that joke. Anyway, I've said enough for now. There's about an hour and a half left to go. Yippee.